Hi, and welcome to our podcast, Conversations with B'nai B'rith. I'm CEO Dan Mariaschin. Thanks for joining us today. My discussion today is with Steve Weisman, Bentley University professor, lawyer, and one of America's leading experts in identity theft, scams, and cybersecurity. But first, if you enjoy this program, subscribe to Conversations with B'nai B'rith wherever you get your podcasts and leave us a rating. And you can also subscribe to our YouTube channel and like us on Facebook for all of our latest content. As the largest national Jewish sponsor of non-sectarian federally subsidized housing for older adults in the United States, B'nai B'rith advocates tirelessly for seniors at the federal level and serves as a respected voice on a range of issues, including housing, aging in place, Social Security, Medicare, financial literacy, and fraud and scam awareness. Through our Center for Senior Services, the CSS, we conduct regular training sessions, including our annual conference on senior housing, our managers and service coordinators meeting and virtual spring training, and national programming for our residents. Well, over the past decade, in response to the growing threat of elder fraud, CSS has partnered with the Bank of the West, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, the Social Security Administration, and in our upcoming training session, the Securities and Exchange Commission. These collaborations have enabled us to develop national-level programming for our facilities, focusing on enhancing financial literacy among residents and educating them on avoiding scams and fraud. We also cover what steps to take if they become victims of such crimes. These training sessions often feature speakers, like my guest today, Steve Weisman, who address topics that are relevant to older Americans, including strategies to prevent elder fraud. We're really fortunate to have Steve on the program today to talk about one of the most prevalent issues facing older adults, and all adults really, increasingly advanced scams. In my conversation, I'll speak with Steve about how scams and fraud have been and continue to be perpetuated against older Americans and what people can do to lower their risk of falling victim to these malevolent actors. Steve Weisman is a nationally recognized expert in scams, identity theft, and cybersecurity. He's also a lawyer, admitted to practice before the United States Supreme Court, and is a college professor at Bentley University, where he teaches white-collar crime and was awarded the school's highest award for teaching excellence. He's the author of more than 10 books, including The Truth About Avoiding Scams, named by Smart Money magazine as one of the 10 best money books of the year. He's also been a columnist for USA Today, the American Institute of Economic Research, and other outlets, and has appeared as an expert on ABC, NBC, CNN, CBS, CNBC, Fox, and many more. He's also been quoted in major publications, including the New York Times, the Washington Post, and Forbes. Steve, happy to have you with us. Thank you for being here today.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
Well, at our Center for Senior Services, discussions often revolve around the critical issue of older adults falling victim to fraud and scams. Could you elaborate on the severity of this problem concerning older adults and help us set the scene and define the issue?
Yeah, older Americans lose, according to the Federal Trade Commission's most recent statistics, about $1.6 billion. And that figure a year. And that figure is probably really understated because, unfortunately, there are a lot of times that people are victimized by scams, but they're embarrassed and they don't want to report it. So it's a huge problem. And in fact, seniors are targeted more by scam artists. And we call them artists. They're the only criminals we refer to as artists. Interestingly enough, two of the most major demographic groups as far as being targeted are seniors and then Gen Xers and Gen Z, the younger people. But with seniors, there actually is, and I've studied this a lot, a physiological basis for why seniors are more vulnerable. You know, we often think, well, maybe they're more trusting. And one of my mottos for everyone is trust me, you can't trust anyone. But the thing is, there have been studies done at Cornell and the University of Iowa that have shown there's a part of our brain that deals with skepticism that becomes less viable as we age. And so seniors often are more vulnerable because they are more trusting. And so they fall victim to a wide variety of scams.
Who are the scammers and where can they be found? I know on my caller ID,
Yeah.
that's the first thing I look at. And if I'm skeptical, that's it. I don't pick up the phone. But who are these folks and where are they found?
Well, first of all, don't trust your caller ID. When it tells you it's a scam, you can trust it. But unfortunately, there's a technique called spoofing, which is very easy to do. The technology is readily available. And this allows a scammer to be able to manipulate your caller ID in a manner that they can make the phone call look like it's coming from the Social Security Administration, from the IRS, or anyone else. So whenever you get a call, a text message, an email, sometimes you can see it's phony, but a lot of times, even if it looks legitimate, you can't trust it. So who are the scammers? Today, they're everywhere. They can be their family members. They're organized crime. There's the proverbial 14-year-old down the street. And increasingly, and this is what's making this so serious, not just call centers in India, and India is a center for call centers, both legitimate and scammers, but the criminal geniuses, I call them the Lex Luthors, who create the ransomware and malware and many of the scams and scam delivery systems. Their business model today is they create they create the malware, they create the scams, and then they go on the dark web, that portion of the internet where criminals buy and sell goods and services. And you need a special browser, generally Tor, to get there. And so what they do is they offer their technological expertise in these scams to scammers who are far less sophisticated and less technologically savvy. So you can be getting a scam, an investment scam, or a moment scam, or a tech support scam, you name the scam, and it can be coming from someone anywhere in the world, and that's part of the problem. And of course, it's been accentuated with AI. Because now you can have scammers who are calling you on the phone from a country where English is not the primary language, but through AI, their accent is going to be eliminated and they're going to sound just like your neighbor.
Tell us a little more about AI and how that works, because we hear it all the time. There's hardly a day that goes by that there isn't a story on TV or a story in the newspaper or on a website. And I think a lot of folks are confused exactly how it works. You've explained how it is applicable to this particular problem, but broadly speaking, how does it work?
Well, AI in general, what it's done is it's gathered just about all of the information that you can find on the internet. And so what happens is people are able to make a request for something to be done using this AI, and it is consolidated and it comes out in a script for them. As far as scams go, it's a double-edged sword. Right now, I think the sword is sharper on the edge for the scammers than it is for defense. But defense, I'll get into, is also being able to use AI. But where we're seeing AI as a weapon is phishing emails. And then, well, you're certainly aware of the phishing email. It can appear to come from Social Security. It can appear to come from Netflix. It can appear to come from whomever they want. And they're either looking to lure you into clicking on a link and downloading malware, such as keystroke logging malware that'll turn you into a victim of identity theft or ransomware, or maybe even luring you into some kind of investments. And investment scams, particularly against seniors, have gone up dramatically in just the last year. A lot of that attributed to cryptocurrencies. But what happens is there's the phishing email where it's not directed to you personally, and it doesn't seem to have that direct connection. But then there's what we call spear phishing email. It is specifically targeted to you. So it has your name. It has things in which you're interested in. And so people tend to trust it. And AI has allowed these spear phishing emails to be done now by less sophisticated criminals, and again, criminals who may be in countries where English is not the primary language. So suddenly, the email with the grammar that used to make you cringe and laugh at it now comes out really well. making it worse, one of the biggest scams that we warn seniors about is the grandparent scam. And we call it the grandparent scam, but it's also the family emergency scam. There's a call in the middle of the night, and it comes from the grandchild or a family member who's in the midst of an emergency and needs money to be wired right away. The problem is with this, with AI now, they have voice cloning artificial intelligence that can pick up as little as 30 seconds of the voice of the person they want to impersonate, which they can get from social media, they can get it from Instagram, whatever. And they will sound exactly like that family member. And so people, it's an emergency, and we call it the reptilian brain. There's a part of our brain that deals with emergencies. It's the fight or flight, and we respond quickly to this. And we respond quickly by sending that money. And that grandparent scam now has been made so much worse because it can sound exactly like the grandchild. One key thing we tell people, it's a sad commentary, is every family should have a safe word. And you pick out, it can be a nonsensical word, it can be fire truck. And anytime someone calls with an emergency, they have to know that by that word in order to be able to defend yourself. But AI has also been used to set up on social media bots to lure people, and a lot of scams come from social media, particularly investment scams, and it enhances so many of the scams that we're seeing today.
Well, you've just gone through and outlined several scams that target older adults. Uh, what can this person, let's say an older adult living alone,
Yeah.
in an apartment somewhere with some nice neighbors, but they may not necessarily be as informed about this particular issue. They may be living away from their relatives. What is it that a person can do to educate themselves about these kinds of things, including what you've said seems to be the latest aspect of this, which is the voice cloning technology?
Yeah, and there are a lot of things we can do, and you can start with knowing more about the most prevalent scams. So investment scams. People should never invest in anything that they truly don't understand. And in fact, Bernie Madoff, of all people, said blamed his victims. He said anyone that looked into what I said I was doing would have known that it was impossible. And with cryptocurrency scams, too often people believe that they're going to make this great killing. So no one should invest in anything that they haven't researched, or the person who is offering it. And that's another thing, because there's Bernie Madoff is a prime example. He was an equal opportunity scammer, but he targeted a lot of Jews and Jewish organizations. And this is an example of what we call affinity fraud. We trust people who are like us. Well, who is us? It depends how you're going to identify it. It could be a member of your religion, a fraternal organization, any kind of a connection. And frankly, that's one of the things that we need to do, is to get people not to be quite as trusting when it comes to things like investment scams, because these are the people that are going to take advantage of you. It's also recognizing whenever you get it's sad commentary, but whenever you get a communication, be it a text message, a phone call, or an email, you can never actually be sure who really is contacting you. And the scammer always tries to get people to act immediately. There's some kind of an emergency, and we need to get people to kind of slow down and verify before they provide any kind of personal information, or certainly make any kind of a payment. And then it's also basic understandings. We get a call from you get a call from the Social Security Administration that there's a criminal that is using your Social Security number, and so we need to verify it's really you. And you turn over your Social Security number. How do you know it's the Social Security Administration calling or not? How do you know it's the IRS calling or not? Real easy. They don't call. The IRS, Social Security, none of these organizations will ever initiate any contact on the phone. A more difficult one is text messages from your bank. And this has been a major problem in recent years. Now, people sign up. I've signed up for alerts from my bank if there is something going on. And what happens is people get a text message and they're asked to verify information. There's a problem with your bank, but you've already signed up for alerts. The bank is never going to ask you for that personal information on your account if they give you an alert. The thing that I always tell people is if you get an email, if you get a text message, if you get a phone call, and it can even be for a solicitation for a charity, because you can't know whether it's legitimate or not, you don't respond immediately, you hang up. If you think it's the Social Security Administration, you call Social Security. If you think it's the IRS, you call IRS. But the thing is, they try and get us to act immediately, and we need to slow things down.
Now, to combat this problem, it's going to take more than seniors adopting good habits and identifying scams, which is, of course, the first thing that one needs to do. But while governments at all levels understand the challenges posed by AI, the laws safeguarding against elder fraud primarily they're at the state and local levels, and mandatory reporting requirements vary across states. So, what actions, if any, are the federal and state governments taking to tackle the issue? And additionally, has the private sector been helpful at all, or at least played a constructive role in addressing this very critical issue?
It's a mixed bag. And last November, I was testifying before the Senate Select Committee on Aging about AI and scams and looking at some of the things they have started to do, some of the things they're advising, but a lot needs to be done. A lot of scammers love gift cards. And they love gift cards because they're very easy. All they need to do is get the card number. They entice the victim into getting a gift card. They get the phone. They get the gift card number over the phone, and that money is gone forever. So what is now pending is some federal legislation. There have been some companies that have done a better job, but most have not. And the idea is when you go to buy that gift card at Target, at Walmart, and suddenly it's in amounts of $500 and repeated amounts of that or more. They are to ask you and to probe whether this is something that is indeed a scam or not. There's an interesting lawsuit going on right now that I'm very much in favor of. New York Attorney General Letitia James is suing Citibank. And Citibank has had, as all banks have had, a lot of customers who have fallen for scams and wired money to the scammers, and the money's gone. They try and go to Citibank. Citibank says, we didn't do anything wrong. We're not going to reimburse you. But in Attorney James's complaint, which I read quite thoroughly, I found it interesting that there are things the banks should be doing, and legislation should. I don't even know if you need to have legislation or if it just be part of the fiduciary duty. You have an elderly person who has never wired money at all. And suddenly they go into the bank and they're wiring their life savings to someone. If that doesn't raise a red flag, nothing does. And these are the steps that the banks should be doing. Now, FINRA, the organization that regulates brokers and security people, they have a regulation that allows a broker to see if there is something that doesn't seem in line, and they can hold up transfers while they can investigate, as well as have a trusted person on the account. So some institutions are doing a better job, but they really, all of them. When you look at, I tell my students the answer to every question is it's about the money. And so where do the scammers get their money? They get it from gift cards. They get it from funds that are wired. That's where you want to go. You want to get the banks involved so that the bank recognizes this isn't the emergency that the customer thinks it is. Let's not punish the victim. Let's have the banks. Let's have the brokerage companies. Let's have the companies that are doing gift cards. And the FTC has taken action against Western Union and others who really didn't look into it and really were kind of accessories by the way that they helped transfer funds.
You would think that the banks could do more in this regard. I mean, look, when you have your credit card and you've attempted, let's say you forget your password.
Yeah.
And the bank knows, apparently through its software, there have been 3 attempts made on this card, so that doesn't look like this is the person who is the real card holder, and that's it. Can't take any more money. I've got to check with the bank. So I would think that idea could be extended further in terms of protecting seniors and all individuals. But I want to go back, if I can, Steve,
Sure.
to AI. What is one way that AI or any key technological advancement is helping to mitigate the risk for older Americans? We've talked about how it can be
Yeah.
used by the scammers. Is there a good way for AI to be applied to this problem to help folks?
Yes, there really is, and that's where I do have a lot of hope. It's in the early stages, but AI is just like the scammers are able to use AI to create more effective phishing and spear phishing. The flip side of that is AI can recognize patterns in the spear phishing to identify a spear phishing email and build that into your security software that can knock out that phishing or spear phishing email. In regards to phone calls and robocalls, and another bad thing with AI is robocalls created by voice over internet protocol, so it's coming from computers in massive numbers, are now able to use AI to actually have conversations with people and manipulate them and make them scam victims. The flip side of that is AI can also be used to, again, recognize voice and voice patterns to see which ones of these are going to be scams and, again, knock them out before they ever even get to the consumer. So we're in the early stages of our defenses, but it's very, very promising that that same weapon that the scammers are using is going to be able to use to knock out and built into everyone's security software with their phone, with their computer. So I'm very hopeful as far as the positive uses of AI.
Well, what are some of the trends in scams that we might not have talked about, but have caught your eye in the last year or so that we should be concerned about? We've talked about the AI and voice technology. Anything else that people should be alert to?
Yeah, you look at the big ones, and perhaps the biggest scam, and it encompasses a lot, are what we call imposter scams. We tend to trust authority figures, and so what happens is you've got a whole range of them: IRS, Social Security, the police. When people get communications from them asking for money, people often get scared, and so they respond or they provide the personal information. And so this is something we need to let people know that these institutions generally are not going to be contacting you through a text message. They're not going to be contacting you by phone. They're not even going to be contacting you by your email. They're only going to be doing it through snail mail. And even there, scammers will be there. So you always have to verify. But recognizing that when you get those contacts, it's not going to be legit. The other thing is the imposter scams comes with companies with which we all do business. So it probably comes as no surprise that one of the biggest kind of companies that the scammers pose at is Amazon, is Netflix. And so there's an issue with your Netflix account, with your Amazon account, and people start providing the information. So it's a frame of mind that whenever you're asked to click on a link, whenever you're asked for personal information, you need to step back and you need to confirm. Even paranoids have enemies, and obviously I'm one of the more paranoid. And my friends laugh at me. I got an email from a friend who wanted me to see something, and there was a link, and he put, "It really is me contacting you." But even then, I called him up and he laughed at me. Yes, that was me that sent it. And here's how bad it gets. And you were mentioning earlier, Dan, about, you look at certain phishing or spear phishing emails, and it's coming from the IRS, and the email address is Joe Blow at Stetson University. And I go, well, obviously Joe Blow at Stetson University had his email hacked and it's being used to send this out. But the real sophisticated scammers will not only be able to have email addresses that look exactly like the institution that they're after, but, and I remember the first time I look at it, they will sometimes build in the Cyrillic alphabet. The Cyrillic alphabet is an alphabet used in Slavic languages, and it is incredibly close, but not precisely so to the regular English alphabet. So I've looked at some email addresses coming from scammers that are supposedly like from, Amazon or Citizens Bank, and it until I really stare at it, I couldn't even tell the difference between the real one and the one that's fake because of using that Cyrillic alphabet. They really are. They have a knowledge of psychology Freud would have envied, and some of them are very sophisticated. So the thing to do is you just can't trust. So when it comes to any kind of communication, the imposter scam is a big thing. You always have to verify. Investment scams and cryptocurrency scams have gone up hugely. And investment scams hit seniors a lot. And part of it is they're more trusting. Part of it is the old Willie Sutton, the bank robber line. Why do you rob banks? Because that's where the money is. And they know seniors have got savings. So with investments, you've got to do twofold. You've got to understand the investment, and you've got to understand the person who's doing that investment, the person who is advising you. And again, when it comes to investment, the affinity fraud. Recently in Colorado, apparently God has gone into the scam business because there's a pastor in Colorado who is operating a cryptocurrency scam, stole millions from people, from his parishioners and others, and he has admitted guilt. But he said that God told him to do this. I didn't realize that God was an accessory when it comes to investment scams. But here again, investment scams, we trust people. Sometimes, again, they're even Ponzi schemes where, hey, this works. My friend has made a lot of money, but ultimately that Ponzi scheme fails. And that again is what Bernie Madoff said. Anyone who looked at what I said I was doing would have known it was impossible. So you've got to know the investment, and you've got to know the person who is offering it. Another biggie is tech support scams. This has become huge. You get a pop-up on your computer that is a problem, and you need call this number, and you call this number. And one thing, you get right through to tech support, that's for sure, because it's a scammer who wants remote access to your computer where they can steal all kinds of information, or they want you to pay for something that you really don't need. But another kind of insidious thing is, let's say you want regular tech support or customer service. You may go to Google, or you may ask Siri, I want the customer service number for Netflix or whomever. The scammers are able to manipulate the algorithms used in search engines to get a high position and put a site on there providing a service number that isn't the real service number. You're going to customer service, you're going to be calling the scammers. And then sometimes they just let their money do the talking, and they buy an ad that turns up at the top of a Google search or other search engine search. So you think you're getting the real customer service or tech support, you're getting the scammer. And when you ask Siri or Alexa, all they're doing is going to those same search engines, so they don't even realize they're giving you the scammers information.
Well, final question. Do you think that the media has given this problem appropriate attention? Older folks still read newspapers. They go online, of course. They watch TV. Do you think the problem has really been given the right attention by the media?
I don't. And here's the thing, occasionally there'll be this story. And one of the things that I've done recently is really delved into why people fall for scams. And because there are really intelligent people that do fall for scams. And there are times even, for instance, the lottery scam, the phony lottery scam. It's hard to win a lottery. It's really hard to win one that you haven't even entered. But many people, and particularly it's a problem with seniors, fall for these lottery scams. And there have been instances where even though the families are telling it's a scam, they continue to fall for it. And so I keep looking at the literature about this. And one of the things that I'm finding is that you need to constantly repeat the warnings. And so I really think that the media has to do a better job of PSAs and warnings and repeating them and doing them in a manner that is going to get through to people. So I do think the institutions and the media have got to do a better job of alerting the public.
Well, you can delve further into Steve Weisman's expertise, including trends in scams and identity theft at scamicide.com. Spelled out, that's SCAMICIDE.com. Steve, in a world where financial scams are constantly evolving and growing increasingly complex, you really help cut through the noise and bring a sense of justice to the conversation. You're welcome back on this program anytime. Thanks again for doing this.
It's my pleasure, Dan. Love talking with you.
Well, this concludes another insightful episode of the Conversations with B'nai B'rith podcast. Thank you to my guest, Steve Weisman, for joining us, and to you for tuning into our show. Remember, the conversation doesn't end here. Share this episode with others, post about it on social media, and leave us a comment or a rating. Love hearing from you. For all of our latest content, and if you haven't already, follow or subscribe to Conversations with B'nai B'rith wherever you get your podcasts. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and like us on Facebook. And be sure to learn more about our work and advocacy on behalf of seniors at bnaibrith.org/seniors. Stay tuned for more exciting content in our next episode. Until then, for my guest, Steve Weisman, this is your host, Dan Mariaschin. Take care, everyone.